¿Le has explicado por qué te parece una locura que se encierre en un convento? Son monjas de clausura, ¿eh? ¿Por qué no la llevas al psicólogo?
No está loca.
Pero algo le pasa.
Pero vos no ves que atacándola así solamente vas a conseguir...
Bueno, buenos días.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to the new press conference of the films that form part of the official section of the festival this year. As you see, we're going to present Los Domingos, Sundays, the new film by Alauda Ruiz de Azúa, a director who we like very much at the film festival. Last year we had her series Cadet. Today she comes here with the film Sundays. To present it, we have a significant part of the cast. Some of them are on the panel and the others are in the front row. I'm going to try to mention them all, but I'm sure I'll leave someone else. From the other end to here, we have Nagore Aranburu, actress in the film.
Juan
Minujín, actor. Patricia Lopez, Arnaiz, actress. Alauda Ruiz de Azúa, the director and scriptwriter. Blanca, Soroa, she's the leading actress in the film Sundays. Miguel Garcés, actor. And next to me, Mabel, Rivera. And we also have the presence of the producers Guillermo Farré, Marisa Fernández, Armenteros, Naikari Ciguiña, Sandra Almida, and Manuel Calvo, all producers of the film. And as we have a lot of people, please ask your questions. We have one in the front row. Thank you very much. Good morning from here, from Cinema Gavi. Congratulations to all of you, to all of the cast. It's a film which draws your attention very much because it deals with a lot of issues, some of them religion, the young people, but it also, everything is well. There's a lot of delicacy that characterizes your work. I want to ask you two questions. Where does the idea of trying to show us this story, everything that it brings along with it, and whether the nuns in the convent, apart from Nagore, were real, or were they all actresses as well? Thank you. Well, the story comes from a long time ago, an anecdote when I was a girl who had a religious vocation, and she entered into a nun's order. She was very young, and it drew my attention that someone at my age would make a decision, that I saw something that was excessively radical. I didn't understand it. I was very curious about it. And then as time went by, after shooting Cinco Lobitos, I did understand that we could address it, but from the point of view of the family. And it was the perspective from which I wanted to look at the story, because to address an adolescent at a home, if you address that sort of an issue, there's a lot of fragility within the family I could talk about, and convictions that we have that are very strong, and then an adolescent can question in this case. And I thought it's a territory which was very interesting to explore, and I launched to research it. And it was a religious vocation in 2025. And about the nuns, I'm going to take it as a compliment, because it seems that they were real. We've tried to be as rigorous as possible in all the religious scenes. No, they're all actresses. Well, the truth is, the nuns sing. So therefore, what we did was set up a choir of women, and that's where the women who portray the nuns and who accompany Nagore. Okay, there's a question here. Yes, good morning. Congratulations for a great film, that it's like life itself, and you can see it and watch it with a lot of tenderness, and it's well done. For example, I didn't choose the subject matter of the film didn't draw my attention, but you overcome these prejudices with age, and I want to congratulate the screenplay writer and the director, who's the same person basically, but it was all done very well. I identify myself with the role, splendidly portrayed by Patricia. One, I've just apostatated, so giving that voice is very interesting to contrast with with that early vocation of becoming a nun. But the question, apart from talking too much and saying that I thought it's a great film, and it should win much more than one award, because you're all magnificent. What would be the link between Cinco Lobitos, Querer, and this film? That is to say, there's always the family and things that are really day-to-day issues, but that are dealt with very masterfully. Is there any link between the three works or the three films? Well, I think that they're different, but it is true that within the fact that within the family universe, I do believe that there's something that Sundays in this film is much more present. We can see it in Los Lobitos and the film Querer. The institution as a family, we place a lot of effort in maintaining the family together. It's very interiorized that family has to be a place of love, peace, and refuge, and meeting place like your final support. But not always such the case, or can you build things that way? But how fragile the family is very difficult to see. It was in Los Lobitos, and logically in Querer, and in Sundays as well. We have this family, albeit there's a lot of things that can't be said, and we've got characters like Iñaki and Maite. If they saw her out in the street, they wouldn't get along well. But these are two brothers and sister that every Sunday they meet up to have lunch at the grandmother's house, Lila. So therefore, what they have in common, the three stories, all the characters confront how to maintain the family together. What do you give in? What efforts that you make to maintain the family together? There's a question here. Ada Movistar Plus, thank you very much for the film, which is a jewel. I have two brief questions, one for Lauda and one for Blanca. For Lauda, you've said that the film has been in your mind for many years, and I would like to ask that making it today has to do with this search at any cost of a refuge of a community in the wrong places, which is a discussion which is on the table at present. And for Blanca, it's a question for Nagore. I think this film is the contrary to all the films of nunsportation, for example. But where did you look at to portray those nuns or novices with so clearly? Let me just mention Nagore. She's got 4 films in the festival. Nagore, she's got to do something. Nagore's got 4 films in the festival. Could you answer your first one if you can? And then go to the other film. Thank you. Okay. How do we work on the prioress? Well, it's giving to understand more than judging, starting that way. And as it was a character who was going to be a wall in this story, trying to give it reality to that vocation and to what the main character had to feel. It had to be a place of refuge and to give a peace, and that had to be true. You had to believe it. We've worked from that point of view, because quite often that peace and that lack of conflict is quite misconcerting. Yes, and what you were talking about, to seek refuge, perhaps mistaken refuge. Of course, I've tried to build the film from the tension that exists as a spectators, for example, so that you've got to discover to what extent it's a genuine feeling, authentic, or even spiritual, or the truth is it's accompanied or influenced or or pressured by the adult family, the family, due to what they lack more than the relationship with the father, as well as the religious vow. What adults play in that vocation is very important when portraying the scenes and the narrative of the film. But this also talks about the vulnerability and complexity of adolescence. It's a very delicate moment because you start to feel very adult things, very intense things, and I'm not too sure whether you translate them well, but they feel real. And at a given moment, that vulnerability, I think one of the hypotheses that film addresses is that it can lead you to the need of affection or to feel special and can take you to a place that you didn't expect. And as regards to preparing the character, before making this film, I wasn't an actress, so I didn't know exactly how to prepare a character or whether you had to prepare a character. So therefore, and what I did was from the rehearsals to listen to Alauda, who had researched a lot about the subject matter, and she summarized all of the data that she had, and we build Ainara slowly but surely and trying to understand her as much as possible. I think that we've managed to achieve it. There's a question back here. Hi, good morning, Mario from Monocine. Congratulations, first of all, for the film. I would like to ask Alauda, precisely because of the title, Sundays. Alta's talked about the brother and sister characters. If they saw each other in the street, they would kill themselves, but they go and eat on Sundays at the grandmother's house, have lunch. But Sundays has a liturgical meaning because of Mass. Where does that emerge, the title of Sundays? And personally, what is it? What does Sundays mean for you? Well, Sundays is a title that I liked very much. At the beginning, it emerges because of family lunches and dinners, and it's almost the obligation of getting together on Sundays at the grandmother's house for lunch. But then I realized that it's also the day of the Lord for religious people. But in the film, there's a lot of play. It's like a lot of mirrors, and there's double meanings. And there's a constant play of the adult and family world. And to a certain extent, in contrast to the adult religious world, with a more earthly love competing with a divine and supernatural love. It's a title that can evoke this, because then it can evoke different things, and that's the nature of what I wanted the film to be. What are Sundays for me? Well, the truth is, Sundays are a day to watch movies, to tell you the truth. There's a third meaning to this as well. There's a question here, John. Hi. Congratulations also for the film. I would like to ask you, Blanca has mentioned that she asked a lot of questions and you explained things to her, but I'd like to know whether there was a lot of discussion with the actors when trying to understand the script and their own characters, because why they behaved in one way or another, whether the actors had a lot of questions to ask you as regards to what the film addresses. And then I'm very curious to know whether the songs Into My Arms and Into My Arms were in your mind from the outset, or did they emerge subsequently? Well, there were a lot of questions, but I also had a lot of questions. So therefore, for me, the work is always a conversation. So therefore, we all ask questions about the characters, and you try to find the answers together. And I think it forms part of the process of finding different layers to what we do. I love for them to have questions. I enjoy that very much if they ask me questions. And about the songs, well, they changed, but this was due to there was an original version at the outset when we had another song, but always playing with the idea of taking a very update pop or rock music in the choir to give it a very holy sort of feeling. But from the budget, there was a song that was not feasible, and so therefore we found an alternative. And once again, sometimes if you're open to the process, even better things emerge than what you had thought of initially. At present, I think there's no other better soundtrack than Nick Cave's Into My Arms and the other song. Another question.
Congratulations, beautiful film. And it's ironic because I was going to ask a similar question about Nick Cave's song. Very cathartic and appropriate. So I'll pass it on to somebody else. But congratulations, everything, cinematography, acting, music. I still have chills. And I think the audience was all very, very moved, I think, after the film. So best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Yes, there's a question in the back.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Soy Eduardo Aragón.
Eduardo Aragón for Vagabunda,
Decías que una parte de la inspiración
a magazine from Mexico. You said that the inspiration of this film, a great part of it, comes from when you were at school. So therefore, I'd like to know, how much do you see, whoever wants to answer, how much do you see Spain has changed over the last 30 years to this part, which was this of the Spanish state then, and how open is the discussion and Spanish society to talk about this subject matter? That's what I'm saying, vis-a-vis 30 years ago. Well, the truth is that the film talks more about the religious vocation in 2025, but in a context of young girls who go to religious schools, and this forms part of the Spanish reality, just like the Catholic religion forms part at different levels or different degrees and different sensitivities. I do believe it's an issue that can still generate a debate, but the film also emerges with a vocation of generating discussion, debate, and conversation, but not a fight, shall we say. But I want to encourage people to discuss and debate how much there is in our lay society, how much religion is there. Imagine Karol G, for example, was singing at the Vatican. So that's the world we live in nowadays, of contrasts. Okay, there's a question in the back. The girl in green, I think she said. Hi, Isabel, that's it, from La Rioja. Alauda, and ask you all whether you're aware of the fact that this film in 2025, where there's a great void at a social and individual level, it can generate that there are people that truly may address this contemplative world. You're aware of this because I saw the film and I was thinking perhaps it could be a film, not wanting not to be, but it could go along those lines. Well, if someone thinks that about the film, the first thing I would say was they know very little of how a religious vocation comes about. Perhaps it's very beautiful. I'm not saying that it's intentional. No, I understood your question. But it could be an effect and a cause. Well, let's see. What I was trying to say is that a religious vocation process, from a psychological standpoint and a religious standpoint, to think that a film can have anything to do with that, I think it's a bit naive. We see gangsters films and we don't want to become gangsters. We see those films because of other reasons, obviously. But take advantage of your question to state that literal reading of things can be done, but it's got to evoke things in us which are much more valuable. It can't be just literal, I think. But there's a question here. Hi, Linda Zapata from Secretos de Cine. Alauda, I want to ask, I'm going to readdress the question because it has to do with a Corbera, but it's along those lines. Let's see. To choosing that song at the end, it's a very powerful ending, very emotional ending, but I would like to ask you about that final edit, and you've talked about gangsters, and it reminds me, because what you do is resolve the situation of each character at the end. And it's quite curious also because of how the film ends, because it doesn't finish with Blanca. So therefore, how did you conceive that? Why Aitor Mena? Because the song works better than what you had thought of beforehand. And then I missed that the song was subtitled because of the meaning of it, because at the end of the day it's a song of separation, of a yes, it's like a farewell, that's right. Great questions. Well, the editing, well, for me, I built the film, or I constructed the film, with very extreme points of view, starting with Ainara and Maite's perspective, but trying to maintain a certain distance with the points of view, but writing and building and constructing those characters and making them very extreme. The journey of the family, it's the important journey of the film. This is a bit of a spoiler, but the film doesn't finish when the family goes their own ways individually. That's the end. It's great what you're saying. It's beautiful what you've just said, because in the version of the script, the film always finished with Maite, because for me there was something, even, I'm not too sure, but there was a bit of hope that we stay on those that still have the earthly love with imperfect relations, with uncertainty, those that are still living and they don't know whether they can cross the other side of the road with their family members, for example. So there's this uncertainty, and I remain with the people who have an earthly love, shall we say, which we're all in, I think. But we could have subtitled the song at the end, because it's true, it's perfectly applicable, the lyrics. It's a song that talks about a farewell in a very beautiful way, by the way. But the truth is, the music is so powerful that I felt that it was okay as it was to fall into that poetry and evocation, and not having to read it with subtitles, perhaps. Two questions in the back, first one and the one at the back. Hi, first of all, congratulations. I think that you've made great films, by the way, but I think this one's incredible. This is from the script, the directing of actors. You're all very good. You're well directed, by the way. And so, another thing that surprised me about the film is you want to provoke a conversation, as you said. And we said with some colleagues, you've managed for us to talk people who may have to a lack of faith, or other people who are believers. So I think that there's a certain respect there with which you've said sometimes, for example, without having religious beliefs, you made a film which is absolutely respectful, with a dialogue. Everyone can have their own ideas. The ending is very open, and you can be on both sides, or on one side or the other side at the end. And that's what I wanted to congratulate you at the end of the day, and also ask you, how do you make it to be able to address a faith that you don't have, and to reflect that for us who are believers is very respectful. Well, having faith in the spectator, obviously, believing in spectators who watch the film. Yeah, well, and I think in part that's one of the important elements of the film, that we can generate through the film a space so that the spectators can draw their own conclusions. I think an issue like this has to try to understand all of the characters, and to try to be rigorous, and to not fall in any, or ridiculing any character or any aspect. Another aspect of the film is it's a film about very complex questions that require discussion and debate and conversation. So therefore, the question is to see how, at times, from our moral superiority, for example, makes it difficult to understand other persons in front of us. So, for example, these are very interesting questions. You can apply them to any character in the film. As all of a sudden, there are places where they do connect and come together. So, therefore, these are the scenes that are like, I don't have the answers. And I want to launch questions to the people who see the film, and you can go your own journey as a spectator when you watch the film. Thank you. Marina Estevez from FA Agency, congratulations for the film. It's full of nuances, the film, and doesn't ridicule at all. So therefore, from what I've seen, the point of view of the director and the scriptwriter is the character of Patricia Lopez Arnaiz. She's overwhelmed. She says she sees like the young girl is going to a religious order, and all of a sudden the world goes upside down, something that you don't expect. So therefore, I'm not too sure whether that's my personal point of view or whether the really Patricia's role, and I would like her to explain how she constructed her character, if it is possible, and whether that's the perspective that the creator have, you as a director. Shall I start? Well, of all the characters, Maite's character, portrayed by Patricia, is much closer to me, perhaps. But my positioning or my perspective vis-a-vis the look, the film is one of questions. So therefore, in that sense, all of the characters are questioned and represented with their dark and light side of their character. I wanted to look at them, but also questioning him. Then, well, to prepare the character, well, just as you're saying, you start with the material, which has all the ingredients to dive in and interest you and moves you. There's a part that you contribute, but you give yourself into that material, the script, and obviously all the prior work with Alauda, which does research work which has to do with that respect that you were talking about before, which is incredible. And it's beautiful to work from that standpoint, by the way, because it also provides that personal aspect of being able to research and to get closer to those points of view, and the work with my colleagues as well, to be well surrounded by good actors. So therefore, a character like this, well, Maite's character is not a character that Juan's character, for example, my partner, Pablo, which has a marvelous sequence in which he tries to understand her, asking her questions, like research questions. You listen to a call, what's that like? Or what is the spiritual experience? What's that all about? Maite doesn't even ask herself. She said, are they voices? Are they images? She doesn't want to investigate, nor know about her experience. She's afraid. She feels the responsibility of protecting her niece because she's the feminine reference because of because the mother's not there anymore, and that moves me. I have a niece, and I know, and I have a very close link and powerful link with my niece, and for me it was very easy to connect with that, precisely because of the script, how it's written, everything that surrounds her and the family and her moment, the moment she's living through. There's a driving force there that enlightened me straight away, and be well surrounded by good actors and accompanied by a good script. It's easier for you to delve into it. I wanted to open the question also to the actors that have not intervened in the press conference yet, because it's true that at the end of the day, and as the film is closed, Patricia and Blanca's characters have play a special role, but all the characters are very important as regards to, as Alauda was saying, each one reflects a different point of view vis-a-vis a situation that destabilizes a family, and plus they're all together. And that's the interesting and most beautiful thing as a film, because through affection, because of their affection, which doesn't disappear, albeit there are different points of view. I would like to ask the rest of the actors who have not participated in the press conference about your work in the film and how you've lived the experience of working, your characters and the experience of working with Alauda. Well, I'll start. As I'm the oldest person here, I have a right to do so. The meaning of a woman, like the grandmother in this film, has to do with an end. It's not only the end of her physical end, which is going through to her age, but the situation that's being created, it's a total disencounter. Sundays have lost their meaning. It was something I've talked to Alauda about this. I've tried to go in depth there. This lady, she's seeing her end coming. What her family was, that meaning of union, that meaning of confraternization, of being together, taking care of them and try to understand them, is falling to pieces, is collapsing. She is feeling deceived of these creatures that she's had. The only hope and her only joy is leaving as well, albeit Maria Dolores would agree. She is more on the side of understanding and even of being able to support at a given moment that her granddaughter is a nun. It couldn't give her joy, but for her to leave, no, not at all. For leaving at that moment, no. And this completely marks the end of her character. She dies because life doesn't make sense for her. Why? Because because things are falling to pieces of what she tried to build with her father, to which she talks to her husband every time she speaks, every night. But she asks everything to her husband, her dead husband, to try to obtain a type of support from that person that's not with her anymore. That's her only way of trying to survive. And that's why I passed away in the film. Perhaps the most attractive thing for me that Alauda asked me about the character is to be a father that's not very easy to understand. I'm a father in real life by another, and I have a son more or less similar age as another. Gave me the opportunity of going away, moving away from my reality or my trend, that your son to understand you and to try to and to find support in you, and that Alauda said was the most important thing for me. He says, I've got to try to find that distance, the difficulty in her reading me. And it was fun, albeit it was tough, because my human trend is to try to understand and try to those eyes that are looking at me from an age of 17 years old, a 17-year-old girl. Initially, the work with Alauda was very surprising, above all, because quite often we listen and we say to ourselves, you've got to play at being an actor. Someone said that a moment ago with Alauda. For me, was an experience, quite unique way of not playing at the character, but truly go from everything that a character means and to getting into the journey and that subjectivity. And Alauda's, for example, I'm surprising how she could do that with each of the characters. She's more identified with one, Patricia's character or whatever, but she has an enormous capacity of being able to accompany the process of each of the actors from that subjectivity or subjective standpoint. And it was great for me. I was very pleasant. And also the process of my character, what Alauda did was open up the question, amongst many other questions that the film asks, open up the question of how to accompany someone who's making a decision that someone thinks is very mistaken. How does one approach that? And that's where I think that each of the characters that surround that Blanca's character have different positions, and I thought that entire orchestra was very complex and very interesting. I would like to add something else, not a detail, but some information that I think what is very important to achieve characters and acting work which are true or move more, that are very honest. This has to do with knowing to write the relationships between them. And I think that if we could all talk as a family, it's another character as an entity, all of the mixture of relationships between us all. And as that's written and it's what's thought of and imagined and it's in the script and we worked with that, the preparation with the relations and improvisations and relationship of us all, me with her, with him, with all of us together, to knowing how to see all of that and how family relations are was one of the powerful elements of the film. It seems to me it's very easy to see that family portrait. If there aren't any further questions, I would like to ask a question to Alauda related to the directing work and staging. In your cinema and everything that you've done for TV, there's a central idea of the house, the physical space, where things happen and how you configure families or they break down within those spaces. And I think this is something that's quite obvious in Cinco Lobitos and in Querer, but here you take it to another place. Is a physical space is determinant for the characters. I would like to ask you about how you thought about that from the script and then to put it on into the direction of the film, because the film is, the word is rigorous, because there's rigor in all your films, but much more sophisticated, I would say, as regards to how to tell the story of the characters in the family through the places in which they inhabit. Could you talk about this? Yes, it's true that every time I write, I always, when I see the versions in the script, it's all interiors almost. I think it's because I'm interested in the intimacy of families, and that tends to happen more in interiors. But it is true, this film, as other interiors, such as the religious world, emerge, at a language, from a language standpoint, I asked myself, how am I going to tell the story of these two worlds? Do I separate them formally, or do they have something in common? At the end, you're talking about a cloister, not people enclosed in between four walls, but that happens in our day-to-day life as a family. In this sense, I tried to diffuse the lines between both places. I think there's planning that rhymes, for example, in both places. There are textures and colors that are in both places. There are very subtle decisions. There's very little sky. Every time you look through a window, there's a wall, be it the family house or the convent. I tried to. The language is very austere and very so. There's a lot of sobriety to take away the makeup of who these people were. So means that both worlds, they could be quite different, but they all belong to that same world. Thank you very much. If there aren't any further questions, thank you very much to the cast and director of the film, and good luck with the premiere tonight.